All right. Good day, everyone. This is Rangadad. Bit of a quick Saturday morning analysis just because I had to come into work to get some other shit done. For some reason, I got a real tickle in my throat this morning, too. So apologies if I cough into the microphone a bit much. Oh, man. All right. Quick look at open interest and funding rates. Might have just temporarily topped out here. I said 69K in the title of this one. Looks like Binance pulled up slightly short of that, $3 short of that. But it actually hit, I think, smack on 69K. Oh no, 69 and $50 on bybit. So to be honest with you, apart from everyone liking the number 69, there's not a hell of a lot to stop it here. It could pull back, but I was expecting at least 70K at this point. I mean, it's a healthy pullback. If we bounce off either the 50 EMA on the 15-minute or the mid band of the Bollingers, that'd probably be a pretty reasonable point for another bounce. DMI hasn't really come together too much yet. It is like the minus is trending up, so you've got to be a little bit careful. But and momentum is to the downside as well. So you're probably looking for a reset of this. If DMI is still above the positive, still above the red, when you get that reset on momentum, then it'll probably go again, I would think. But we are coming to the end of the session in the US, and it is the start of the weekend. So we'll just have to wait and see. It could be a quiet weekend. It could be a volatile one. So hard to read weekends at the moment in this sort of market. It's hard to read anything except just buy the dip, basically. Just got to watch out for when the dip keeps on dipping. So essentially, I'm using this DMI whenever the green's above the red. Any pullbacks that I'm looking for like this, I've actually got a hedge trade to the downside at the moment, but it's not as big as the long that I got open, and I'm expecting it to be a fairly quick one. As soon as I get sort of a hint of turnaround on the momentum, I'll stop out of that. Wait for it to come back up. So basically, take profit on this move to the upside is essentially just when these cross back over. For me, I think the way I'm going to approach using these in the bull is basically take a little bit of profit off when you see momentum sort of cross to the downside. Should be pretty good at getting the highs, but then add back in once as long as the green's above the red, add back in once you get sort of a switch in that momentum. And this little curve in here is actually just the rate of change of momentum. So when it crosses the 0 line is basically when you get a confirmed change of direction. But this, to me, is saying, okay, momentum's slowing now. So that's actually probably a good time to be buying. All right, as you can see, you're going to get a lot better entries there than if you wait for the momentum to actually turn to the upside, because then you're buying in there rather than down here. So, and again, it can be good for take profit as well. So that's how I'm using this. If it's the only sort of caveat on that is if you are closing outside of the Bollinger Bands, you can let it run if momentum's still in your favor, especially if the DMI is expanding, or your ADX line, which is the white line there. The ADX line is just the difference between the plus and minus DMI. All right. That's a quick explanation of what I'm doing this weekend. If you look at this chart, we haven't had that pullback. It doesn't look like wanting to pull back. I mean, this blue vector candle here technically had a bit of pullback, but still expect a little bit more than that at some stage. Good run for the time being, though. It's collected a fair bit of this wick in here. That's what I was going to do. I wanted to have a look at that wick, see what was in it. All right, what do we got here? So it's red vector candles all the way up. So I would expect us to keep going into potentially even really close to that 70, like close to the top there. Yeah, I don't see why not. And once we get above that, I mean, 70K was a pretty decent rejection level. I'm not expecting 69 to be where it stops. And then, you've got vectors up to 71, basically. You got a juicy one sitting up there right at the high. Yeah. Obviously, there's a lot of reasons for it to go quite a bit higher. So for the time being, pullbacks are just pullbacks. Whether it does it over the weekend or not will be interesting to see. We have got a buy finally on the bullish smart money indicator as well. Yeah, momentum's still up. BBWP is still up. Everything's still pointing to the upside. Let's have a quick look at the NAS. Not a super strong day on the NAS. Relatively low volume as well so far. There's certainly a lot of caution in the markets, and it's coming through in this sort of price movement. The SPY is still going pretty well. You want to be breaking that that wick there. If we break that wick and there's no sort of major news hanging over the market, I'd expect a bit of a run. Equal weight was flat though. Again, I mean, momentum's still up, volatility's still up. Hard to call a top there. IWM didn't have a great day. That's interesting. No major downside, but just not a great day. Pretty low volume across the markets. Yeah. Yeah. Bullshit, really. XLY, XLP, it's still trending up. And momentum's actually crossed back to the upside. And BBWP is coming off pretty low read there, so Similar setup to what we had here. I mean, that right there, it's not a guarantee, but geez, that's a pretty positive setup for the market in general. Regional banks had a bit of a pullback. You kind of expect that after a pretty decent run up. Still nothing really to write home about. It looks like it is rolling over a little bit, but for the time being, it's probably just going to pull back or go a little bit sideways. Geez, that's close to a new all-time high on home construction. What's that? Close 128.58 and 129.34. So it has actually made a new high. While this was running, it's hard to be bearish. Like the signs are there that there is going to be a correction soon, but the signs are also there that there's still some potential upside to come. That's a little bit more concerning, but gold has broken out as well, and it's going on a decent run. So the fact DJI hasn't kept up with it isn't too surprising, but it is strong. So not super worried about this one yet, but we'll be watching it pretty closely once it gets down to the 1573 level. VIX is still dropping. Skew is still climbing. So again, that's supporting more upside in the market. Interesting move on Chinese market yesterday. It closed above that high, 27.83 and 28. Oh, it did close above that high. That's interesting. That's a sign of potential reversal there. It's still in the bearish control zone, but that is the first sign that we're potentially going to arc out of this and go to the upside again. So, yeah. All right. I mean, that does look like a reversal bounce. So maybe not into this box. We did move that down. We did have it in this zone here before, which it tapped into, but it looks like it's bounced sort of off this resistance level here. We'll see. Still, I mean, not a bad buying point if you're going to trade this long term, buy and hold sort of situation. Japanese yen. I mean, the Japanese market looks like it's coming down a little. TLT has had a bit of a bouncy sort of ride lately because the 2-year and the 10-year kind of sideways, a bit undecided. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if the 2-year came up into that 4.3. It's still lower than what the current rate is. And it would mean they're pricing in less of a recession. Yeah, I mean, high yield is actually pushing higher, which does suggest that there is still some room left to move in the market. So yeah, not too. I mean, TLT could actually be fairly bearish, unless we get that shock in the market, which just there isn't any significant signs of it at the moment. So Copper's just finally bounced. Pretty good level in here. I do expect copper to push forward if the market does in fact rally. Gold 1% up for the day. That's a pretty good move for gold. It's pretty well as much as you would expect for gold, actually. Doesn't move much more than that. There's a 2% day. Still not done with yet. And yeah, definitely not going to take profits until I see signs of weakness on gold, which it doesn't seem to have any at the moment. 3,000 is looking pretty good, but you'd expect some resistance around 2,800. Hooray, silver went on a run. Good on you, silver. This would have gone big breakout. Those that have been watching for a while would know that we've kind of been waiting for this. Silver should outperform gold for a while, just because it's pretty low in comparison to gold. Had it on the weekly. Like typically, silver spends most of its time a lot higher than this in relation to gold. So I do still have more gold than silver in my retirement account, but that's pretty good sign there. And it's about to close that week too, so silver, I dare say, is going to be the runner of the next week. That's a pretty good breakout, really. Very good breakout. It's still got a fair bit to go as well, momentum wise and BBWP wise. Interestingly, among all this, global liquidity is kind of flat to slightly down. Oh, geez. Oil's actually not looking healthy. That's a pretty nasty looking candle. There is a lot of people calling for a much lower oil, which, like, I've heard people calling $40 oil. I think cost of production at the moment is around 56 or something from memory. Could be completely wrong there, but I thought I heard that the other day. So I'd be surprised if it gets much lower than 56, which should be a bit of support around 57.5. But yeah, for the time being, that's a pretty bearish rejection overall. See where it closes, but you kind of got, this is your last hope of a turnaround on oil. Maybe little bounces, but closure below the 786 is typically not good. Typically, you would be back down into the 61.76 or even 58.92. Yeah, 58.92 is probably a better. I mean, 71.76 is probably where you're going to get a bounce. That's not a bad level there, but kind of expect it to come down into the 58s. It might take its time to break this level as well, because it is a fairly strong support level. So we'll see. Oil's a tough one, but just the fact that it's coming down kind of suggests the economy's, well, the stock market can go on a bigger run. So that's why we look at it. Dixie's finally coming down a little bit. Could just be a retest of the 200. Again, stock market going up while Dixie's going up as much as it has is kind of not normal. So there is some funny stuff going on. Good bounce off the 200 for the Aussie. Euro's just bouncing off nothing, but it's a pretty decent level. We covered the majority of this vector. Could just pull up into this 200 and then pull away again though, so just bear that in mind. Japanese yen probably struggle a bit to get back through the 200 EMA here, but we'll wait and see. Yeah, it's not looking super healthy, but momentum has just crossed the signal line, so that all sort of plays into, is Dixie going to break back through this 200 and come back down, or is it just going to bounce off here and keep going up? I have to wait and see on that one. It doesn't seem to be having a huge effect on the market at the moment, so not super concerned either way. But if that does pull back a lot more, then that should inject a fair bit of upside. I don't think we've got a read on this yet, have we? No. I've got to figure out what's going on with that. Percentage of stocks above 50-day average. Still trending up. Momentum's starting to slow a little bit. I think still got a little bit to go. Like, we're not seeing this really. It's not at a level that you normally see topping out before we get a big downturn. Mag 7 is still flat. Jeez. Money's certainly been moving out of the big guys. Tesla with another tiny doji. This is an interesting setup. Tesla's coiling. Momentum's low. Tesla could be a good buy at the moment, actually. I mean, it could also do this, like drop again. Like that there was a bit of a coil. Momentum's low, and then it just tanks some more. That is definitely a possibility as well. Target center around the 185. But if we get a gap up, then Tesla could go on a big run. I just don't know what's gonna drive that. Earnings. Maybe it stays flat into earnings. That'll be interesting. Earnings could be a big mover on this one. Yeah, not going to call anything on that for the time being, but momentum is going to be the key there. Whichever way it goes, it'll be a decent move, I think. Nvidia, flat, at the highs still. I want to see it come down, retest that. This area here before earnings. Apple's still going, but flattish. Yeah, pretty flat day on the big guys. ASML's had a bit of a bounce. Island reversal here, so 790 is probably a pretty good take profit target if you went long from here. Okay, that's all interesting. Go to this chart. Been talking about this the last couple of days. And looks like we're finally getting this flush out of the longs at the top. So this to me is something we've got to be really careful of. Bitcoin does have a lot of momentum behind it. There's a lot of people buying in. There's flows into the ETFs and things like that. So there's a lot of upside pressure, but at the same time, we typically see these either at the highs or as it's coming down, the first part of the move down, so the first couple of days. But the downside continues as these guys start buying back in. So they're buying in on the way down, they're selling on the way up. Again, here was a bit after the pullback, but they certainly dumped a lot there and then started buying back in when it came down further. So this here is the first major sign that I would say that Bitcoin's potentially going to keep coming down. Yeah, definitely something to be wary of. Even here, yeah. I mean, it could keep doing that and we keep going up. That's the other alternative as well. Because they will, if we go on a big run, these longs should be dropping as we're going on that run. Because there's people just taking profit on the way up and then they're accumulating through these zones. Okay. So yeah, it's an interesting signal. Just something to be cautious of, I guess. I think any decent pullback is going to be bought back up. That's the key there. So, yeah, look, for the time being, it's still bullish. If these two cross, I'll be looking for a bit of a deeper move to the downside. But I'll be taking profit on any shorts pretty quickly as soon as I see sort of turnaround on the stochastic momentum. Okay, I think that'll probably do it for today. I don't think I've missed anything. ETH is still pressuring this channel, but it just can't seem to break into it. Sol, good update, but it's at risk of coming down and coming down quite hard, actually. I mean, BBWP is increasing. If Sol breaks below this momentum line and BBWP is still going up, then it could come back down to this support level. That'd be a major move. Probably one to watch. Some of these might lead the way over Bitcoin just because most of the liquidity is being pumped into and out of Bitcoin at the moment. So these could drop a bit harder, a bit quicker. I'd say if Sol closes a daily below about 147, yeah, 147.60. If we close a daily below that, it could get a little nasty. Back down into the 120 sort of level. In which case, I would expect Bitcoin to be doing its pullback thing as well. So a few levels there. Definitely, I can easily see the Bitcoin hitting a new all-time high this weekend. but at the same time, I could definitely see it pulling back as well, which doesn't really give you much indication. I guess it's just we're getting to the point, we're getting close to the point of seeing a pullback, I think. And it's going to be pretty quick, I would think. I'm expecting sort of a red vector kind of pullback, something like this. I don't think it goes all the way down here, but I guess, yeah, it's just 15-minute chart for me has been the critical one lately. I do look at the 1 hour a little bit more as well at the moment. Just when you're going on these big runs, the 1 hour sort of hanging above key moving averages and Bollinger Band, like the middle of the Bollinger Band and stuff like that. You know, we haven't really broken below the 50 EMA too much at the moment. Interesting violet candle there. So typically seeing them at the top does initiate a bit more move to the downside. Yeah, or at least sideways sort of action. So I don't know, this pull back into 67.5 roughly is still quite healthy, just based on the hourly chart. But yeah, at this stage it doesn't look like it wants to move too much further. Just don't expect it to leave these vectors for too long. But we have left a lot behind. Particularly this one. 62,500 is still a very sort of critical level. Even low 63s potentially for a bounce. If we do get pullback, if we do get sort of swapping of the DMI, they're kind of my targets to the downside. That's about it, I think. This stage. This stage though, 15-minute is still technically bullish. Hard to be short for any significant length of time. I'm going to have a quick look at. Oh yeah, open interest is still quite high. It does kind of look like a little bit of a topping signal there, similar to this one. So a lot of liquidity further down to pick up if it wants it. All this stuff in here. It hasn't been great at picking up liquidity to the downside lately though, so beware of that. Like, yeah, it hasn't really been able to take much. So fair bit at 69.5, but I think realistically, compared to what's sitting at 70k, the amount of interest that's going to be around these levels, even up to 73. 74, 75 is probably going to be the peak if we do blast through these levels. I would expect a bit of a pullback at that stage. Just, I mean, it's going to go into price discovery though, so pullbacks will be pretty short-lived, I think. Is typically the case for the way Bitcoin moves once it breaks out of a new level. Yeah. 69.5 does look like a reasonable level here. Yeah, that's very juicy there. 70.5, and top of that little band's at about 71,300. But again, hard to be bearish, but we do have the big guys and ETFs and stuff in the market now, so we'll have to wait and see. All right. I'll catch you later.